The Opal Tower Builder wins a legal battle. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article from the Sydney Morning Herald, written by Megan Gorey, discussing the Opal Tower Builder icon has won a legal battle against their insurers. Now, we're all familiar, well, if you've been following the channel for a while, you're familiar with the Opal Tower saga with regards to the cracking that occurred at that building. Now, I've done several videos on it. We go through a whole lot of the different elements, but it essentially, incorrect Rio was placed in certain elements, precast elements, and other parts of the building, which resulted in cracking in, I think, one of the upper atrium spaces, you know, the design features. So, of course, Icon now is fighting with their insurer over a damaged bill. You always have to fight with your insurers, guys. They're not your friends. They're not your friends. For those of you that are not, haven't worked as a professional, that haven't needed PI insurance, they actually have a lot of control over what you can say and what you can act. It's a little shocking when you discover it. You'll find a lot of people won't even apologize and won't say anything about, if something's gone wrong, because that negates the ability of their insurer to fight legal battles. I had that happen once on a job. We had an engineer that we'd hired underneath us. Now, they were a mechanical engineer and electrical engineer, and they'd designed the lighting for an office space. Now, what had happened is they hadn't done a correct light lux level analysis. They hadn't taken account, they just did it generic. They didn't take account of all of the furniture and workstations that we had. Because this was a relocation from a tower in the center of the city to a suburban branch while they refurbished the tower. And what happened was the lux levels were too high. And this workforce, shall we say, were rather high maintenance. It was a government corporation, and they were used to getting every single thing they want. So they were just complaining and whinging. And the engineers, when we sat down to discuss it with the client, the engineer said, "Oh, sorry, that's our mistake. We'll sort it." So by saying that, they had exposed me to liability. It wasn't, I wasn't exposed. Well, it wasn't my mistake. It was their responsibility. But because I hired them, they were under me. To sue them, they had to sue me. Fantastic. It's the reason why I don't engage engineers anymore. I put that risk directly onto the client. And if you're a budding architect or a consultant, I highly recommend you put all those risks onto the client. Because even if someone, is doing well, it all worked out well in the end. We got the problem solved. Just how you do it. These things happen on projects. But they're still inadvertently exposing you to risk. And I tell you now, I'm much more picky with the amount of lux level assessments I get from my engineers. And you can tell if they've just done a copy and paste or done an actual design. So let's have a look at this, guys. The builder of the cracked Opal Tower in Sydney West has had a court win against two insurers who had refused to help cover a multi-billion-dollar bill to fix the damage. About 300 residents were evacuated from the 36-story apartment block at Sydney Olympic Park after a crack developed in a load-bearing concrete panel on Christmas Eve 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago now. And how many other issues have just come to light then in the construction industry since that? And this is a big project, a big prestigious project. Icon launched action in the federal court against insurers Liberty Mutual and QBE, both of which had denied they had to provide coverage in relation to legal claims against the company relating to the building defects. On the night before Christmas in 2018, things were stirring. Major cracks were observed at the Opal Tower across 3 floors in certain wall panels, floor slabs and hobs. Federal Court Justice Michael Lee wrote in a decision this week. Residents evacuated from the building gradually returned to their apartment during 2019 after Icon carried out a series of building rectification works. We're still waiting to see what happens with Mascot. Everyone, that's a whole other issue. The cracking to the newly completed Opal Tower was among the first incidents to trigger concerns about the quality of new apartment blocks across Sydney, and the incident unleashed a wave of litigation in New South Wales courts. The federal court decision said that since February 28, Icon had paid out in excess of $31 million as a result of the cracking damage, including $17 million in property rectification costs, $8.5 million in alternative accommodation, and costs for residents, and $530,000 in legal fees defending a class action launched last year. The court document said Icon entered into a $155 million contract to build the tower and had separate policies in place with both insurers that covered construction and the period after the tower was completed in August. One of the issues at the center of the dispute was whether Icon's insurance policy with Liberty Mutual had expired at the time the damage occurred in December, less than 5 months after construction completed. See, this is the problem. When you kind of have two different insurance organizations from one period to a next, that can just add a whole raft of complications to these processes. But you know who makes the money in all of this, guys. You know the game that makes the money. The legal fees. There you go. Come on. Although there's a flood of lawyers now, and well, it's a hard game to break into. The essence of Icon's argument is that commercially sensible parties in the position of Icon on Liberty would have expected that Liberty policy cover Icon during the defects liability period. Liberty argued its policy ended when construction at Opal Tower was completed on August 10th and did not extend to a 12-month defects liability period to which Icon was required to remedy any building problems. That's insane. Why would they not cover the defects liability period? That's part of the construction. They still have their bank guarantees or their retentions are still being held by the developer. The reason why Liberty may properly refuse to pay the purported claim is because Icon seeks indemnity in respect of alleged property damage that did not occur within the period of insurance under the relevant policy, court documents said. Justice Lee found Icon only partly succeeded in its claim against Liberty. However, he said the parties' common intention was for the policy to also cover the building after construction. Another question was whether the built structure of the Opal Tower was considered a product under the terms of Icon's policy with QBE, which covered the period when the cracks occurred. Justice Lee found that it was, and that Icon succeeded in its claim against QBE. The decision smooths the path for Icon to progress its claim for compensation from the insurers. The parties are required to provide further response to the court's decision within a week. Owners last year launched a class action against the state-owned Sydney Olympic Park Authority, which owns the land where the tower was constructed, seeking millions of dollars in compensation. The authority subsequently dragged Icon and developer eCove into the legal dispute. See, it's to do with the unique laws and legislation, just the setup in in New South Wales here, because the government owned or state owned, Sydney Olympic Park owns the land or owned the land, then invested in some of the units as well. They're tied into it. So the owners understandably went after the biggest pile of cash. The biggest pile of cash. That's what you do. And then everyone else gets dragged into these things. Everyone gets dragged into these things. There's a lot of risk in the building game. There's a lot of risk in the building game. And, when you think about when you weigh it up, the risk associated compared to the reward ratio, sometimes it doesn't make sense to have some people are doing jobs for such low fees. It just does not make sense to me. It really doesn't. It seems insane. Insane. So what do you think, everyone? It's an ongoing saga. We'll have to see. It's good to see that it's getting some media exposure. And, it just seems really messy with regards to having multiple insurance companies going from one period to another. But, I should probably get my insurance broker mate on to discuss it. Do you know anyone that's bought in Sydney Olympic Park? Because, it's a few years ago now. And then what else did we have? We had Mascot come onto the scene. We had Zetlands come onto the scene. We had Sugar Cube come onto the scene. Then there's all the ground contamination all heading down to Botany Bay. Then there was all the issue, flammable cladding in Melbourne. Then you had the Verve in Newcastle with water damage exposing holes between walls. Like literally, Rio just floating there with no concrete between it. Similar stories coming out of Perth. You had all the structural engineering issues up in Darwin. Buying property, guys, it always goes up. Buying apartments. I'm surprised. Apartments are down, investment apartments are down 15% in Sydney. I'm surprised they haven't taken more of a hit. But I think it's going to be this type of stuff, guys. And it depends on the brand and the exposure. So as always, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create here, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I'll see you all in the next episode.